Welcome to Sleepy Legends, where stories from the past unfold in the quiet hours. I'm so glad you're here. Tonight, we travel to ancient Greece, to a time when the world was understood through story, when every force of nature, every human experience, had its own divine presence watching over it. And among all these gods and goddesses, there existed deities whose realm was perhaps the most mysterious, most universal, and most sacred of all: the gods of sleep and dreams. Before we begin our journey, if you enjoy these tales from mythology and history, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue bringing these ancient stories to life. And if you have a favorite myth or legend you'd like to hear, leave a comment below. I read every single one. Sleep is something every human being shares. Across every culture, in every corner of the world, throughout all of history, we have surrendered to it. The ancient Egyptians believed sleep was a small death, a nightly reunion with the divine. In Mesopotamia, dreams were messages from the gods themselves. The Celtic peoples saw sleep as a journey to the other world. And in Greece, sleep was both a gift and a god. The Greeks understood that sleep exists in a unique space, a borderland between the waking world and something else entirely. It is neither fully conscious nor completely absent. It is a threshold, a crossing, a place where the boundaries of reality grow thin and porous. In sleep, we are vulnerable. We are honest. We are, in a sense, returned to something essential and true. And so the ancient Greeks, in their wisdom, gave sleep a face. They gave it a name. They gave it a story. Tonight, you'll meet Hypnos, the god of sleep himself. Not a distant, thundering deity like Zeus, nor a fierce warrior like Athena, but something softer, something gentler. Hypnos moves through the world on silent wings, touching the eyelids of mortals and gods alike. He is both the experience of sleep and the guide who leads us into it. He dwells in a hidden cave at the edge of the world, where light and darkness meet, where the river of forgetfulness flows, and where dreams take shape. But Hypnos does not exist alone. He has a twin brother, Thanatos, the god of death. He has a mother, Nyx, the primordial goddess of night herself, older than the Olympians, feared even by Zeus. He has 1,000 sons, the Oniroi, the dream gods, who slip through gates of horn and ivory to visit sleeping minds. And he has a place in some of the most important stories the Greeks ever told. This is a story about family, about power, about the strange mercy of surrender. It's about why we close our eyes each night and what the ancients believed waited for us when we did. So find a comfortable position. The story is about to begin. And like all the best myths, it starts not with mortals, but with the gods and with the very beginning of everything. Let us begin. But before we do, I want to apologize if I'm not pronouncing some of the Greek terms correctly. In ancient Greece, sleep was woven into the fabric of daily life in ways we might not immediately recognize today. The Greeks lived by the sun's rhythm. They rose with dawn and worked through the heat of the day. In the afternoon, during the hottest hours, many would retreat indoors for what they called the mesembrya, a midday rest. This wasn't laziness or luxury. It was practical wisdom in a Mediterranean climate, and it was also something more, a recognition that the body has its own tides, its own needs. But sleep was more than just physical recovery. It was ritual. It was sacred. There were temples dedicated to Asclepius, the god of healing, where the sick would come to undergo a practice called incubation. They would purify themselves, make offerings, and then sleep within the temple precinct, waiting for the god to visit them in their dreams. And he did, or so they believed. People reported visions of Asclepius appearing before them, sometimes performing surgery, sometimes offering advice, sometimes simply touching them. When they woke, some claimed to be healed. Others woke with instructions, remedies, guidance. The dreams were taken seriously. They were recorded. They were interpreted by priests. This tells us something important. For the Greeks, sleep was not empty time. It was not unconsciousness in the way we might think of it. Sleep was a doorway, and dreams were what waited on the other side. The Greeks distinguished between different kinds of dreams. There were anupnean, common dreams that rose from a person's own thoughts and anxieties, the mind sorting through the events of the day. But then there were crematismus, significant dreams, divine dreams, dreams that carried messages from the gods themselves. These were visitations, not mere imaginings. A god might appear directly, speak clearly, issue a warning or a prophecy, or the message might be symbolic, requiring interpretation. Homer's epics are filled with such dreams. In the Iliad, Zeus sends a false dream to Agamemnon, appearing as the trusted advisor Nestor, deliberately misleading the king to advance Zeus's own plans. In the Odyssey, Athena sends dreams to Penelope and Nausicaa, guiding the course of events. Dreams were not private experiences in these stories. They were divine interventions, threads in the larger weaving of fate. And the Greeks had a framework for understanding where these dreams came from. In the Odyssey, Homer describes two gates through which dreams enter the world. One gate is made of horn, through which true dreams pass. The other is made of ivory, and through it come false dreams, deceptions, fantasies. The Oneiroi, the dream gods and sons of Hypnos, were said to use these gates, choosing which dreams to send to which sleepers. But to understand why dreams mattered so much, we must understand how the Greeks saw the relationship between mortal minds and the divine. The gods were not distant. They were not abstract. They walked among mortals, sometimes in disguise, sometimes openly. They had favorites and enemies. They interfered, influenced, inspired. The boundary between the human world and the realm of the gods was not a wall, but a veil, thin and permeable. And nowhere was that veil thinner than in sleep. When a person closed their eyes, their conscious mind, their waking defenses fell away. They became open, receptive, vulnerable in the most literal sense. The word comes from the Latin vulnus, meaning wound. In sleep, we are wounded open, and into that openness, anything might enter. A message, a vision, a god. This is why sleep required respect, why it had its own deity. Because in surrendering to sleep, the Greeks believed they were surrendering to something larger than themselves. And then there was night itself. We often think of ancient peoples as fearing the dark, huddling around fires, warding off the unknown. And certainly, night held dangers, wild animals, bandits, the disorientation of moving through a world without electric light. But the Greeks did not simply fear the night. They personified it. They understood it. They gave it a name, Nyx. Nyx was not a minor goddess. She was one of the protogenoi, the primordial deities who existed before the Olympians, before even the Titans. According to Hesiod's Theogony, Nyx emerged from chaos at the very beginning of creation, along with her brother Erebus, the embodiment of darkness. From Nyx came forth a host of powerful forces, not just Hypnos and Thanatos, sleep and death, but also Eris, strife, Moros, doom, the fates themselves, and countless others. She was both mother and mystery. Even Zeus, king of the gods, lord of thunder and sky, was cautious around Nyx. There's a story, brief but telling, in the Iliad. Hera had asked Hypnos to put Zeus to sleep so she could act against his will during the Trojan War. Hypnos was reluctant, remembering a time when Zeus had nearly destroyed him for doing this very thing. But Hypnos had fled to his mother. Nyx and Zeus, in his rage, stopped at her threshold. He would not pursue the god of sleep into the realm of night herself. Even Zeus knew better than to anger Nyx. So night, in the Greek understanding, was not empty or evil. It was powerful. It was ancient. It was the realm from which sleep emerged and to which sleep returned each dawn. The Greeks lived with this understanding woven into their language, their poetry, their daily prayers. When night fell, they acknowledged it. When they closed their eyes, they entered a realm that belonged to gods older than Olympus itself. And at the center of that realm, in a cave at the edge of the world where the light never quite reaches and the darkness never fully settles, there dwelt Hypnos. To understand Hypnos, we must first understand his mother. And to understand her, we must go back to the very beginning, to the moment when there was nothing, and then suddenly something. In the beginning, the Greeks said there was chaos. Not chaos as we think of it, not disorder or confusion, but chaos as a vast, yawning void, an emptiness, a gap, the space before space existed. And from this chaos emerged the first beings, the protogenoi, the primordial gods. These were not gods in the way Zeus or Athena were gods, with personalities and desires and stories of triumph and revenge. The protogenoi were forces. They were the fundamental building blocks of existence itself. Gaia, the earth, came forth. Tartarus, the deep abyss beneath even the underworld. Eros, not the cherubic love god of later tradition, but the primordial force of attraction that would allow all future creation. And Nyx, night herself, she was darkness made divine, not the absence of light, but its counterpart, its equal, its twin. Where light revealed, night concealed. Where day spoke, night whispered. Where the sun illuminated every detail, night softened edges, blurred boundaries, allowed things to merge and dissolve. Hesiod tells us that Nyx dwelt in a house near the roots of the cosmos, in the far west where the earth meets the edge of the ocean. It was a place of bronze thresholds and towering gates where she and her daughter Hemera, the day, would pass each other in eternal rhythm. When Nyx emerged from the house, spreading her dark veil across the sky, Hemera would depart to circle the world. When Hemera returned, Nyx would withdraw. They never occupied the house at the same time. Day and night, forever alternating, forever separate, forever necessary to each other. But Nyx was far more than just the darkness that falls when the sun sets. She was a mother, and her children were some of the most powerful and feared forces in all of Greek mythology. From Nyx came Moros, the embodiment of doom and fate, the inescapable destiny that waits for every mortal. She bore Thanatos, death itself, and his twin brother Hypnos, sleep. She brought forth the Charis, spirits of violent death who haunted battlefields. She gave birth to Oasis, misery, and Momus, blame. The Hesperides, guardians of the golden apples at the world's edge, were her daughters. The three fates, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, who spun, measured, and cut the thread of every life. They too were sometimes called daughters of Nyx, though other traditions gave them different parentage. Even Eris, goddess of strife, who would one day throw the golden apple that sparked the Trojan War, was born of night. This was Nyx's brood, abstract forces that governed existence. Not the gods of thunder and war and love that humans prayed to for favors, but the deeper powers that operated regardless of prayer, regardless of sacrifice, regardless of hope. Sleep comes whether you wish it or not. Death comes. Fate unfolds. These were Nyx's children, and they answered to her first. And the other gods knew this. There is a quiet authority to Nyx that appears in the myths, subtle but unmistakable. She does not command armies. She does not hurl lightning. She does not need to. She is older than power. She is the darkness that existed before the first light was kindled, and she will be the darkness that remains after the last light fades. In the story we touched on earlier, when Zeus pursued Hypnos in rage for daring to enchant the king of the gods, Hypnos fled across the sky and sea, desperate, terrified. Zeus, lord of Olympus, wielder of the thunderbolt, could have destroyed him utterly. But Hypnos reached his mother's realm, the house of Nyx, and crossed her threshold. And Zeus stopped. The Iliad tells us plainly, Zeus held back, for he was in awe of doing anything displeasing to swift night. Think about that for a moment. Zeus, who overthrew the Titans. Zeus, who swallowed his first wife and gave birth to Athena from his own head. Zeus, whose anger could shake mountains. He stopped at the edge of night's domain, not because he was forbidden, but because even he understood there were powers older and deeper than his own. Nyx did not threaten him. She did not need to. Her existence was the statement. She was night, and night is not conquered. It is endured. It is entered. It is eventually always returned to. But here's what makes Nyx so fascinating in Greek thought. She was not evil. The Greeks did not see darkness as inherently malevolent, not the way later traditions sometimes would. Yes, her children included frightening forces, death, doom, strife, but they also included sleep, dreams, and tenderness. Darkness held both comfort and terror, concealment and revelation. Night was when the world grew quiet, when labor ceased, when the heat of the day released its grip and cool air moved across the land. Night was when fires were lit and families gathered, when stories were told, when lovers met in privacy, when those burdened by the harshness of daylight could finally close their eyes. In the darkness, you could not be seen. and sometimes not being seen was a mercy. This is the paradox of Nyx. She is feared, yes, but she is also necessary, even welcome. The Greeks understood that human beings cannot live in endless light. The brightness would scorch. The constant visibility would wear the soul to nothing. We need darkness. We need the concealment it offers. We need the rest that comes when the world fades from view. And so Nyx was honored quietly without the grand temples of the Olympians, but honored nonetheless. She was invoked in night rituals, in chthonic rites, in magic and mystery. She was acknowledged as the mother of forces no one could escape, and as the soft darkness that made escape possible at all. From her came Hypnos, and from Hypnos came the gift that allowed mortals to survive the weight of their own consciousness, the gift of forgetting the day, of setting down the burden, of slipping away from themselves for a while. Nyx gave birth to many terrible things, but she also gave the world sleep, and in doing so, she gave the world mercy. It is no wonder, then, that her son would inherit her gentleness alongside her power, that he would be the god who touches even Zeus with tenderness, that his realm would be one of shadows and silence, where the rivers of memory and forgetfulness flow side by side, where the boundaries blur, and where every soul, mortal and divine, must eventually come. Of all the children Nyx brought into existence, 2 were inseparable. 2 were twins. 2 were born together and would work together for all of time, visiting every mortal, every god, every living thing that had ever drawn breath. Hypnos and Thanatos, sleep and death. The Greeks called them brothers, and more specifically, twins. This was not accidental. This was not poetic license. The Greeks saw a profound connection between sleep and death, a kinship that went beyond mere metaphor. They were 2 aspects of the same mystery, 2 ways of surrendering consciousness, 2 forms of departure from the waking world. Every night, when sleep came, the Greeks believed the soul underwent a kind of small death. You closed your eyes. The world vanished. You lost track of time. Your body lay still, vulnerable, undefended. Your mind wandered to places you could not control, encountered beings you did not summon. And when you woke, if you woke, it was like a small resurrection. You returned, but you had been gone. The philosopher Plato would later write about this connection, suggesting that the soul during sleep was freed from the body, able to perceive truths hidden from waking consciousness. Other thinkers saw sleep as a necessary emptying, a daily reminder of mortality, a practice run for the final departure. But the relationship between sleep and death in Greek thought was not one of fear. It was one of recognition. They were brothers. They shared the same mother, the same realm, the same work. Where Hypnos came gently each night, Thanatos would come once, finally at the appointed time. They were 2 parts of the same gift that Nyx had given to mortals, the gift of release. Hesiod describes them in his Theogony with careful distinction. He tells us that both brothers dwell in the house of night, in the misty darkness near the roots of the earth. But their natures, though related, are different. Thanatos, death, has a heart of iron. His spirit within him is pitiless bronze. Once he seizes a mortal, he does not let go. There is no bargaining with Thanatos, no negotiation, no reprieve. He is final, absolute. When he takes you, you cross the river Styx, you descend into the realm of Hades, and you do not return. The Greeks called him Stygieros, hateful, and Aedelos, unseen. Death was not welcome, even if it was inevitable. But Hypnos, Hypnos is different. Hesiod says he is Epios, gentle, or Mylikos, mild, soothing to mortals. Homer calls him the subduer of men, but there is no violence in this subduing. Hypnos does not conquer. He does not force. He touches. He whispers. He spreads his quiet influence, and the strongest warrior, the cleverest philosopher, the most vigilant watchman, all yield to him eventually. And unlike his brother, Hypnos releases those he takes. Every morning, he lets them go. His grip is temporary. His darkness is borrowed, not owned. He is death's gentler echo, death's merciful twin. The Greeks depicted these twins together in art, sometimes on vases, sometimes on monuments, sometimes carved into the stone of tombs. They appear as young men, often winged, sometimes bearded, sometimes youthful. In many images, they are shown carrying a body between them, usually a fallen warrior from the battlefield, bringing him home for burial. Sleep and death, working in tandem, bearing the dead with dignity and care. One of the most famous images comes from the so-called Euphronios crater, a red figure vase from around 515 BCE, now housed in a museum in Rome. It shows Hypnos and Thanatos lifting the body of Sarpedon, a Trojan hero killed by Patroclus during the Iliad. The twins are winged, solemn, focused on their task. They are not cruel. They are not celebratory. They are workers, fulfilling their duty, guided by Hermes, the psychopomp who leads souls to the underworld. This image tells us something important. The Greeks did not see death as a punishment delivered by a vengeful god, nor sleep as mere absence of waking. Both were services, tended by divine brothers who were simply doing what the cosmos required of them. And there is tenderness in this. Thanatos might have a heart of iron, but he is not shown as gleeful or sadistic. He simply is. And Hypnos, his twin, carries the same inevitability with far more softness. If death is the end, sleep is the nightly reminder that endings can be gentle. That surrender does not have to mean suffering. In literature, too, the twins appear together. In Homer's Iliad, after Sarpedon falls, Zeus commands Apollo to cleanse the body and then deliver it to Hypnos and Thanatos, who will carry him back to his homeland of Lycia for proper burial rites. It is a moment of quiet dignity in the midst of war's chaos. The twin gods appear not as figures of horror, but as caretakers, almost mourners themselves. The Roman poet Ovid would later write of them in his Metamorphoses, describing how Hypnos lives in a cave where silence reigns and poppies grow at the entrance, their narcotic properties a symbol of his power. Thanatos, in that tradition, is rarely far away. They are always together, or nearly so, because their work overlaps, their purposes align. But here is the key distinction the Greeks understood. Hypnos offers you practice. Each night, you rehearse the act of letting go. You close your eyes. You release your grip on the day, on your worries, on your identity. You allow yourself to dissolve into something else, into dreams, into darkness, into a state where you are not fully yourself. And then, miraculously, you return. The self reconstitutes. The world reforms around you. You wake. This nightly practice was not meaningless. It was preparation. It was education. The Greeks believed that those who could surrender to sleep with grace might also face death with grace. Those who fought sleep, who resisted it, who feared the nightly loss of control. These were the ones who would struggle at the end. Hypnos taught mortals how to let go. Thanatos simply collected them when the final lesson was complete. And yet, despite their closeness, despite their shared lineage and shared work, the twins were not identical. Thanatos was necessity. Hypnos was gift. Thanatos was inevitable. Hypnos was invited. Thanatos came once. Hypnos came again and again. Faithful, reliable, a friend who returned every evening without fail. The Greeks honored both, but they loved only one. In some traditions, Thanatos had no cult, no temples, no festivals. He was acknowledged, certainly. His name was spoken in funeral rites. His presence felt at every deathbed. But he was not worshipped in the way other gods were worshipped. You did not ask Thanatos for favors. You simply accepted that he would come. Hypnos, though, was different. There were shrines to him, small altars, offerings of poppies and milk. Travelers would pray to him for safe rest on the road. Warriors would invoke him before battle, asking for sleep the night before, so they might fight with clear minds. Parents whispered his name over restless children. He was approachable. He was kind. And he had a family of his own. For Hypnos, unlike his brother, had children. 1,000 sons, the Oniroi, the dream gods. Thanatos brought endings. Hypnos brought possibilities. Thanatos closed doors. Hypnos opened them into worlds of symbol and story and strange, shifting visions that might be prophecy, might be memory, might be pure invention. The twins lived together in their mother's shadowy realm, but they walked different paths. Thanatos walked toward finality. Hypnos walked in circles, returning always, night after night, to every mortal bed, every god's couch, every creature that required rest. And in his cave at the edge of the world, surrounded by the sounds of the river Lethe and the murmuring of dreams, Hypnos waited, not with impatience, not with eagerness, but with the calm certainty of one who knows he will be called upon, tonight and every night, forever. For even the gods need sleep. Even Zeus, in his palace on Olympus, must close his eyes. And when he does, it is Hypnos who comes to him gently without permission needed and grants the king of the gods the same mercy he grants the poorest shepherd. In this way, Hypnos was perhaps more powerful than any Olympian, because his gift was universal. His touch was equal, and no one, not even Zeus, could refuse him forever. Let us now visit his dwelling place, the cave where sleep is born and dreams take flight. Now we come to Hypnos himself, the god at the center of our story. And to know him, we must first see him as the Greeks saw him. In ancient art, Hypnos appears as a young man, eternally youthful, with soft features and a gentle expression. He is often shown with wings, not the grand, feathered wings of eagles that you might see on Zeus's messengers, but smaller, softer wings, sometimes sprouting from his temples, sometimes from his shoulders, sometimes from his feet. These are wings made for silence, for gliding through the night air without disturbance, for approaching sleepers without warning or sound. In one hand, he sometimes carries a small horn, from which he pours sleep like liquid, dripping it onto the eyes of mortals. In the other hand, he might hold a poppy stem. The poppy, with its milky sap and narcotic properties, was sacred to Hypnos. It grew at the entrance to his cave, its red petals a reminder that sleep is both beautiful and potent, gentle and irresistible. Some images show him with a branch of the river Lethe, the river of forgetfulness that flows through the underworld. He would dip this branch in the water and sprinkle drops onto those he wished to enchant. Where the water touched, memory faded, consciousness dimmed, and sleep arrived like a rising tide. But more than his appearance, it was his manner that defined him. Hypnos moved quietly. He did not announce himself. He did not demand attention. Where other gods arrived with thunder or fanfare, with proclamations and displays of power, Hypnos simply appeared. You would not know he was there until suddenly your eyelids grew heavy, your thoughts scattered, your body softened, and then, without quite knowing how it happened, you were gone. This subtlety was his nature. He was not a god of force, but of persuasion, of gentle inevitability. He did not conquer. He coaxed. He whispered. He waited until the moment was right, and then he moved, and no one, no mortal, no hero, no god, could resist him once he had decided to act. And yet, for all his gentleness, Hypnos was obedient. He answered to those more powerful than himself. He served his mother, Nyx, first and always. He respected his brother, Thanatos. And when the gods called upon him, when they needed his particular gift, he came. But he was not a servant without limits. He had his own will, his own caution, his own memory. And this becomes important in the stories the Greeks told about him. Where did Hypnos dwell? Not on Mount Olympus with the younger gods. Not in the bright palaces of Zeus and Hera. Hypnos belonged to an older order, to the primordial world of Nyx and Erebus, to the places where light does not quite reach. The poets described his home in vivid detail. There is a cave, they say, in the land of the Sumerians, a shadowy people who live at the edge of the world in perpetual twilight. This cave is hidden, approached through mist and silence. No light from the sun ever enters it. No sounds of the waking world disturb it. No roosters crow, no dogs bark, no geese honk. Even the branches of the trees outside do not rustle, for there is no wind. At the mouth of the cave, poppies grow in thick clusters, their petals heavy with sleep. The river Lethe flows nearby, its waters murmuring softly, endlessly, a sound like the world forgetting itself over and over again. Some say the river Styx flows near as well, the boundary between life and death, a reminder that Hypnos dwells in the borderlands, in the liminal spaces where one state gives way to another. Inside the cave, darkness reigns, but it is not a frightening darkness. It is soft, encompassing, like a blanket drawn over tired eyes. The floor is covered in soft moss. The walls are smooth and cool. And at the center of the cave lies an enormous bed, draped in black fabric, where Hypnos himself reclines. He does not sleep. Sleep does not sleep, but he rests. He dreams, if gods can dream. He waits. Around him, his thousand suns, the unhurried, flutter and murmur, taking shape and losing it, preparing to fly out into the world with dreams for mortals and gods alike. Some are true dreams, sent through the gate of horn. Some are false, sent through the gate of ivory. But all of them come from this cave, from this quiet, still place where the waking world cannot intrude. There is no urgency here, no anxiety, no striving. The cave of Hypnos is the opposite of the busy, bright, competitive world of Olympus. It is a place of surrender, of letting go, of release. It is, in essence, what sleep itself feels like, an escape from the demands of consciousness, a return to something simpler and older. And from this cave, Hypnos emerges each evening to do his work. He spreads his wings and rises into the air, invisible, silent. He crosses mountains and seas. He visits battlefields and bedrooms, palaces and prisons. He comes to the old and the young, the sick and the healthy, the guilty and the innocent. He makes no judgments. He simply gives what he was born to give. But his power, we must talk about his power because it is immense and it is strange. Hypnos has the ability to do something almost no other god can do. He can overcome Zeus. In the hierarchy of the Olympians, Zeus is supreme. He is the king, the lawgiver, the final authority. His thunderbolt is the ultimate weapon. His will is the will of the cosmos. The other gods obey him, or they suffer consequences. Hera learned this. Prometheus learned this. Countless mortals learned this. But Zeus, for all his power, must sleep. And when he sleeps, Hypnos is the one who grants it. In that moment, Zeus is vulnerable. He is not aware. He is not watching. And this makes Hypnos, in a strange way, one of the most powerful beings in the entire mythological universe. The Greeks told a story about this, a story that appears in the Iliad, and it reveals much about Hypnos's character. During the Trojan War, Hera desperately wanted to help the Greeks, but Zeus had forbidden the gods from interfering. Zeus was watching the battlefield carefully, and as long as he was awake and vigilant, Hera could do nothing. So she devised a plan. She would seduce Zeus, and once he was distracted, she would call upon Hypnos to put him to sleep. While Zeus slept, she could act freely. But this plan required Hypnos's cooperation. And Hypnos, when Hera approached him, was reluctant. More than reluctant, he was afraid. I would willingly put to sleep any other of the immortal gods, Hypnos said. Even the streams of the river Oceanus, who is the source of all. But Zeus, son of Cronos? I cannot go near him, nor send him to sleep, unless he himself commands it. And then Hypnos told Hera why he was afraid. He reminded her of the first time she had asked him to do this very thing, years earlier. Back then, Hera had wanted Zeus asleep so she could punish Heracles, Zeus's favorite mortal son. Hypnos had agreed. He had put Zeus to sleep, and while the king of the gods slumbered, Hera had sent storms to drive Heracles off course, nearly destroying him. When Zeus woke and discovered what had happened, his rage was terrible. He searched Olympus for Hypnos, ready to hurl him from the heavens, to cast him down into the depths of the sea where he would vanish forever. lost among the darkness. Hypnos fled. He flew as fast as his wings could carry him across the sky, across the sea, not stopping, not looking back, until he reached the one place he knew he would be safe, the house of his mother, Nyx. And when Zeus pursued him to that threshold, ready to drag him out and destroy him, he stopped. He stood at the edge of Night's domain, and his anger cooled. Because even Zeus, in all his power, would not offend Nyx. Even Zeus knew better than to anger the primordial darkness from which all things came. So Zeus let Hypnos go. And Hypnos remembered. He remembered how close he had come to oblivion. He remembered that Zeus, though mighty, though king of the gods, could be made vulnerable by sleep, and hated being reminded of that fact. This is why Hypnos was reluctant when Hera came to him the second time. He knew the risk. He knew that putting Zeus to sleep was not a small thing. It was an act of power, an assertion of dominance, even if it was gentle. Sleep makes equals of everyone. Sleep does not care about thrones or thunderbolts, but Hera bargained with him. She promised him one of the graces, Pasithea, as a bride. She swore an unbreakable oath, and finally Hypnos agreed. He went to Mount Ida, where Zeus sat watching the war. He perched in a pine tree, disguised as a bird, and waited. And when the moment was right, when Zeus had been lulled by Hera's charms, Hypnos poured sleep over him like honey, and Zeus's eyes closed. The king of the gods slept, and while he slept, the course of the war changed. Hera and Poseidon acted freely, and many Trojans died because Zeus was not there to protect them. When Zeus woke, his anger returned, but it was too late. The deed was done, and Hypnos once again had proven that even the mightiest god is subject to the gentle power of sleep. This is why Hypnos is both trusted and feared. He is trusted because he is necessary. Without him, there would be no rest, no recovery, no relief from the burden of consciousness. Even the gods need him, especially the gods, perhaps, who live forever and must find some way to break the endless flow of their existence. But he is also feared because he is a reminder of vulnerability. To sleep is to surrender control. To sleep is to admit that you are not, after all powerful. To sleep is to say, for a few hours at least, I trust the world to continue without me. For mortals, this surrender is easier. We know we are fragile. We know we will die. Sleep is just a smaller version of a truth we already accept. But for gods, for Zeus, who rules the cosmos, sleep is humiliation. It is proof that even he has limits, that even he must close his eyes, that even he must yield to something older than Olympus. And so Hypnos walks a careful line. He serves, he obeys, he comes when called, but he also knows his power, and he wields it with care, always aware that the gift he gives is also, in a sense, a taking away. He grants rest, yes, but in doing so, he takes consciousness, awareness, control. The Greeks understood this. They honored Hypnos, but they also knew that when you invite him in, you are agreeing to let go. You are agreeing to trust that when you wake, if you wake, the world will still be there and you will still be yourself. And for the most part, Hypnos keeps that trust. He is gentle. He is fair. He comes to everyone, God and mortal alike. and he grants them the same gift. And when dawn arrives, he releases them. He lets them return, until, of course, his brother comes. And when Thanatos arrives, there is no waking. There is no return. There is only the final crossing, the last surrender, the sleep that does not end. But that is not Hypnos' work. His work is the nightly mercy, the temporary darkness, the gift that makes life bearable. And every evening, without fail, he spreads his wings and flies out from his cave, carrying poppies and forgetfulness, ready to touch the eyes of the world and whisper, softly, let go. I will hold you. You are safe. We have spoken of Hypnos' cave, but let us now enter it more fully. Let us imagine ourselves standing at its entrance, at the very edge of the world where the waking realm meets the realm of dreams. The journey to reach this place would be long. The ancient poets placed it in the land of the Sumerians, a mysterious people who lived, they said, in perpetual mist and shadow. Some scholars believe the Sumerians were a real historical people who lived near the Black Sea. But in mythology, they became something else. Inhabitants of the boundary, dwellers in the space where day never fully arrives and night never completely falls. It is always twilight in their land, always that soft, uncertain hour between stakes. And somewhere in this twilight country, hidden by fog and silence, there is a mountainside. And in that mountainside, there is an opening, a mouth of stone, dark and still. This is the entrance to Hypnos' cave. Around the entrance, poppies grow in wild abundance. Their red petals are closed during the perpetual dusk, but their presence alone is enough. Even to stand among them is to feel a heaviness, a pull towards stillness. The ancient Greeks knew the properties of poppies. They extracted opium from the seed pods, used it for pain, for medicine, for inducing the deep sleep of healing. And so the poppy became Hypnos' flower, his symbol, his signature. Where poppies bloom, sleep is near. As you approach the cave mouth, you notice the silence first. It is not the silence of absence, not the silence of an empty place. It is the silence of presence, of something actively holding sound at bay. No birds sing here. No insects hum. No wind moves through the trees. Even your own footsteps seem muffled, as though the air itself absorbs sound before it can fully form. And then you hear it, the river. The river Lethe flows nearby. Some say it flows directly through the cave. Others say it runs alongside it, its water so close you can hear their murmuring even from within. Lethe, the river of forgetfulness, one of the 5 rivers of the underworld, along with Styx, Acheron, Phlegethon, and Cocytus. But Lethe is different from the others. The Styx is the river of oaths, binding even to the gods. Acheron is the river of woe. Phlegethon burns with fire. Cocytus is the river of lamentation, where the shades of the dead weep for their lost lives. These rivers hold pain, memory, consequence. Lethe offers something else, erasure. Its name comes from the Greek word lethe, meaning oblivion or forgetfulness. To drink from Lethe was to forget. The dead, when they arrived in the underworld, would drink from this river before being reincarnated, wiping away the memories of their previous lives so they could be born anew, unburdened by the past. But Lethe's waters also flow near the cave of Hypnos. And this is not coincidence. Sleep and forgetfulness are intimately connected. Think about what happens when you close your eyes at night. The day you just lived begins to fade. The sharp edges of worry smooth over. The conversations you replayed endlessly in your mind grow quieter. The embarrassments, the frustrations, the small wounds of the day, they lose their clarity. And by morning, many of them have dissolved entirely. You remember that something happened, perhaps, but the sting is gone. The details have blurred. This is Lethe's gift flowing through sleep. This is the mercy of forgetting. The Greeks understood something profound here. They understood that consciousness without relief, without some mechanism for release, would be unbearable. Imagine if you remembered everything with perfect clarity. Every mistake, every pain, every moment of fear or shame or loss. Imagine if those memories never faded, never softened, never lost their sharp edges. You would be crushed under the weight of it. This is why Lethe flows near Hypnos's cave, because sleep is not just rest for the body, it is rest for memory itself. Each night, when Hypnos touches your eyes, you drink from Lethe without knowing it. The waters wash through your mind, gently dissolving what need not be kept, loosening the grip of thoughts that would otherwise hold you captive. Forgetting is not failure. Forgetting is survival. And in the cave of Hypnos, this process is made sacred. It is honored. It is given form and divinity. If you were to step inside the cave, if you were allowed, if the god permitted it, you would find yourself in near total darkness. Not the aggressive darkness of a dungeon or a tomb, but a soft, enveloping darkness like the inside of a closed eyelid. Your eyes would adjust slowly, and you would begin to make out shapes. The walls are smooth, worn over eons by the flow of water and air. The floor is soft beneath your feet, moss, perhaps, or some other plant that needs no light to grow. The air is cool but not cold, still but not stagnant. There is a scent here, faint and sweet, like poppies and earth and something else you cannot quite name. Memory, perhaps, or the absence of it. In the center of the cave, there is the bed, enormous, draped in dark fabrics, ebony, some poets say, or black silk. Hypnos reclines here, though he does not sleep. He rests in a state that is neither waking nor sleeping, a state that only he can occupy, the god who gives sleep but does not experience it the way mortals do. Around him, his sons drift, the Oniroi, the dream gods, each one a possibility, each one a story waiting to be told. They move like mist, like shadows, taking shape and losing it. Some appear as human figures, some as animals, some as abstract forms, colors and sounds and emotions given shape. They wait for their father's command, ready to fly through the gates of horn and ivory, ready to visit the sleeping minds of mortals and gods, ready to bring visions that might be true, might be false, might be something in between. But we will speak more of them soon. For now, we remain in the cave, listening to the river. The murmuring of Lethe is constant. It is the background sound of this place, the bass note beneath all other sounds. And if you listen carefully, you realize it is speaking. Not in words, exactly, but in the way water speaks, in rhythm, in repetition, in the endless flow of something that has no beginning and no end. It is saying, let go, let go, let go. This is the lesson of the river. This is the wisdom of Lethe. You do not need to carry everything. You do not need to remember every hurt, every failure, every fear. Some things can be released. Some things can flow away, downstream, into the dark waters, and you will be lighter for their absence. The Greeks knew this. They knew that the human mind is not infinite. It cannot hold everything, and if it tries, it breaks. So they gave forgetfulness a river. They gave it a god. They gave it a place in the sacred geography of the cosmos, right here in the cave of sleep, where every mortal comes every night, whether they know it or not. And Hypnos tends this place. He guards the river. He ensures that its waters flow freely, that they reach those who need them. He does not force anyone to drink. He simply offers. And when you close your eyes, when you surrender to sleep, the waters of Lethe wash gently over your thoughts, and some of them dissolve, and you wake lighter, fresher, able to face another day. This is why sleep is merciful, not just because it rests the body, but because it rinses the mind. It allows you to forget just enough, just what is necessary, so that you can continue. Without forgetting, there is no renewal. Without Lethe, there is no waking. The cave of Hypnos is a place of shadows, yes. It is a place of silence and stillness, but it is not a place of fear. It is a place of refuge. It is the place you go every night to set down your burdens, to let the river carry away what you cannot carry yourself, to rest in the darkness, held by the God who asks nothing of you except that you close your eyes. And in the morning, when you wake, when Hypnos releases you and you return to the bright, loud, demanding world, you will not remember the cave. You will not remember the river. You will not remember the gentle hands of the God who held you while you slept. But you will feel it. You will feel lighter, clearer, ready. And that evening, when darkness falls again, you will return. You will close your eyes, and Hypnos will be waiting, as he always is, in his cave at the edge of the world, beside the river that never stops murmuring its one eternal truth. Let go, let go, let go. Now we come to one of the most revealing stories about Hypnos, a story that shows us not just his power, but his character. It is a story of politics among the gods, of bargains struck in desperation, of courage found in unlikely places. It is the story of how Hera, queen of the gods, came to Hypnos with a request, and how that request changed the course of the Trojan War. The war had been raging for years. Greeks besieging Troy, Trojans defending their walls, heroes dying on both sides. The gods themselves were divided, some favoring the Greeks, some the Trojans, their own conflicts and grudges playing out on the battlefield below. Hera, wife and sister of Zeus, favored the Greeks passionately. She had never forgiven Paris, the Trojan prince, for not choosing her in the infamous beauty contest that had started the war. When Paris was asked to judge who was most beautiful, Hera, Athena, or Aphrodite, he had chosen Aphrodite, who had bribed him with Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world. That choice insulted Hera deeply, and her anger was the anger of a goddess who never forgot a slight. So Hera wanted Troy to fall. She wanted the Greeks to win. She wanted Paris and his city punished for daring to reject her. But Zeus had forbidden the gods from interfering. He had decreed that the war must play out according to fate, that the gods should not tip the scales with their direct involvement. And more than that, Zeus himself seemed to be favoring the Trojans at this particular moment in the war. He had promised Thetis, the sea nymph mother of Achilles, that he would honor her son by allowing the Trojans to win battles while Achilles was absent from the fight. Zeus was watching the war carefully. He sat on Mount Ida, above Troy, his keen eyes surveying the battlefield. As long as he watched, as long as he was awake and vigilant, Hera could do nothing. The other gods who favored the Greeks, Poseidon, Athena, they too were bound by Zeus's command. But Hera was clever. She was patient, and she understood something fundamental about power. Even the most powerful being has vulnerabilities. Zeus was mighty, yes. Zeus was king. But Zeus still needed sleep. And so Hera formulated a plan. She would seduce her husband. She would use all her considerable beauty and charm to distract him, to make him desire her, to pull his attention away from the war below. And then, when he was at his most vulnerable, when he was lost in the pleasure of her company, she would have Hypnos put him to sleep. While Zeus slept, the Greeks could act freely. Poseidon could aid them. The tide of battle could turn. And by the time Zeus woke, it would be too late to undo what had been done. But this plan required Hypnos, and Hypnos was not easily persuaded. Hera went to him in his cave at the edge of the world. She found him resting among his 1,000 suns, surrounded by the soft murmuring of dreams and the endless flow of the river Lethe. She approached him with all the majesty of the queen of the gods, all the authority of her position. "Hypnos," she said, "I need your help." And Hypnos, gentle Hypnos, who came every night to every mortal and god without hesitation, who never refused his gift to anyone, Hypnos said no. "I would willingly grant sleep to any other of the immortal gods," he told her. His voice was soft but firm. "Even Oceanus, the great river that encircles the world, the eldest of all the Titans. I would put even him to sleep if you asked. But Zeus? I dare not go near Zeus. I dare not send sleep upon him unless he himself commands it." Hera pressed him. She was desperate. The war was slipping away from her favored side. But Hypnos shook his head, and then he told her why he was so afraid. "Do you not remember, goddess? What happened the last time you asked this of me?" And then Hypnos told the story. It had been years earlier, during another of Zeus's affairs, another of his mortal sons causing trouble for Hera. This time it was Heracles, the great hero, Zeus's favorite. Hera despised Heracles for representing everything she hated about her husband's infidelities. She wanted him punished. She wanted him destroyed. So she had come to Hypnos then, just as she was coming now, and she had asked him to put Zeus to sleep. And Hypnos, perhaps younger then, perhaps more easily swayed by the queen's authority, had agreed. He had flown to Olympus on silent wings. He had waited for the right moment. And when Zeus was resting, perhaps after one of his feasts or one of his amorous adventures, Hypnos had poured sleep over him like a dark river. Zeus's eyes closed. His breathing deepened. The king of the gods slumbered, unaware. and Hera had acted immediately. She had stirred up terrible storms. She had sent violent winds to attack the ship carrying Heracles home from one of his labors. The waves rose like mountains. The ship was battered, driven off course, sent spinning toward destruction. Heracles, mighty as he was, nearly drowned, nearly died, all because Hera wanted vengeance and Zeus was not awake to stop her. But then Zeus woke. Perhaps it was the storms themselves that woke him, the violence of them echoing even into sleep. Perhaps it was simply that enough time had passed and sleep released him. Either way, Zeus opened his eyes, looked down at the chaos below, and understood immediately what had happened. His rage was instantaneous and terrible. He tore through Olympus looking for Hypnos, his voice shaking the foundations of the palace, his eyes blazing with divine fury. The other gods scattered, terrified. No one wanted to be near Zeus when his anger was unleashed like this. Hypnos, Zeus roared, "Come forth, show yourself." But Hypnos did not wait to be found. He knew what was coming. He knew that Zeus, in his rage, would not listen to explanations or excuses. Zeus wanted to destroy him, to cast him down from the heavens, to hurl him into the depths of the sea where he would be lost forever, buried beneath crushing water, unable to return, unable to escape. So Hypnos flew. He spread his wings and fled from Olympus as fast as he could, faster than he had ever flown before. Across the sky he went, across the sea, Zeus pursuing behind him like a storm, closing the distance, reaching out to seize him. Hypnos was desperate. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere that Zeus could not reach. Olympus was Zeus's domain. The earth below was Zeus's to command. The sky itself obeyed the king of the gods. But then Hypnos remembered. He had one refuge, one place even Zeus would not dare to violate. He flew to his mother. He crossed the threshold of the house of Nyx, the primordial night, and he did not stop. He plunged into that ancient darkness, into the realm that existed before Zeus, before the Olympians, before the Titans themselves. He went to his mother and he sought her protection. And Zeus, following close behind, pursuing with all his fury, came to the edge of that darkness and stopped. He stood at the threshold, his fists clenched, his jaw tight, his anger still burning. But he did not cross. He did not enter. Because even Zeus, mighty Zeus, king of sky and storm, knew that some powers were older than his own. Some beings commanded a respect that transcended even his authority. Nyx was one of those beings, and Zeus would not risk her displeasure, not even for the satisfaction of punishing Hypnos. So he turned away. He left Hypnos alive, sheltered in the arms of his mother, and he returned to Olympus. But his anger did not fade entirely. He remembered what Hypnos had done. He remembered the vulnerability, the humiliation of being manipulated in his own sleep. This was the story Hypnos told Hera as she stood before him in his cave, asking him to do it again. "You see," Hypnos said quietly, "why I cannot help you. Zeus nearly destroyed me once for this. If I do it again, even my mother's protection may not be enough. He will find a way. He will make me pay." But Hera had anticipated this. She had come prepared. "Hypnos," she said, her voice softening, taking on a tone of intimacy, of genuine offering. I understand your fear. But what if I could give you something you have always wanted? Something worth the risk. And then she spoke the name Pasithea. Pasithea, one of the Graces, the youngest and most beautiful. Hypnos had desired her for a long time. The Graces were goddesses of charm, beauty, and joy, everything that the dark, quiet realm of sleep was not. Pasithea represented light and warmth and laughter, all the things that Hypnos could never fully have in his shadowy cave. He had watched her from afar. He had longed for her. But she was beyond his reach, dwelling among the bright gods of Olympus, far from the edge of the world where he made his home. Marry her to me, Hera said. Swear it on the river Styx, an oath that cannot be broken, not even by you. Give me Pasithea as a wife, and I will do what you ask. Hera understood that she was asking Hypnos to risk his existence, but she also understood that love, or the promise of love, could make a god brave. And so Hera swore. She invoked the river Styx, the most binding oath in all the cosmos. She promised that if Hypnos did this thing, if he put Zeus to sleep so that she could aid the Greeks, she would give him Pasithea as his bride. Hypnos considered. He thought of his mother's protection, yes, but also of the limits of that protection. He thought of Zeus's wrath. He thought of the risk, but he also thought of Pasithea. And in that moment, Hypnos made a choice that was not about obedience or duty or even fear. He made a choice about desire, about what he wanted for himself, about the possibility of bringing light into his dark realm. I will do it, he said. And so Hera and Hypnos journeyed together to Mount Ida, where Zeus sat watching the war. Hera had prepared herself carefully. She had bathed in ambrosia, perfumed her body, dressed in her most beautiful robes, borrowed Aphrodite's magic girdle that made anyone who saw her irresistible. She approached Zeus as a wife coming to reconcile, as a lover seeking his attention. And Zeus, who loved Hera despite their conflicts, who desired her beauty, welcomed her. He forgot about the war. He forgot about his vigil. All he could see was his wife, radiant before him, offering herself to him. While Zeus was distracted, Hypnos hid himself in a pine tree nearby, taking the form of a bird, waiting for the signal. Hera and Zeus lay together on Mount Ida, and as their passion faded, as Zeus's body relaxed in the aftermath of their lovemaking, Hypnos saw his moment. He poured sleep over Zeus like a blanket. It came thick and sweet and irresistible, flowing from Hypnos's hands, wrapping around the king of the gods, pulling him down into deep, dreamless slumber. Zeus's eyes closed, his breathing deepened, and he slept, unaware, vulnerable, completely at the mercy of forces beyond his control. And immediately Hera acted. She sent a message to Poseidon, who had been waiting for this moment. The god of the sea surged onto the battlefield in the form of a warrior, rallying the Greeks, turning the tide of battle. The Trojans, who had been winning, suddenly found themselves pushed back, their heroes falling, their lines breaking. By the time Zeus woke, the damage was done. The war had shifted, and though Zeus was furious, though he raged at Hera, though he understood immediately what had happened, it was too late to undo it entirely. But this time, Zeus did not pursue Hypnos, perhaps because the outcome benefited fate in the end. Perhaps because he knew that Hypnos had acted not out of malice, but out of love. Or perhaps because he had learned from the first time that some battles are not worth fighting. Hypnos returned to his cave, and true to her word, Hera gave him Pasithea as his wife. And so the god of sleep, who dwelt in darkness, who lived at the edge of the world, who knew only shadows and stillness, he brought a grace into his home. He brought beauty. He brought light. And perhaps that is the real lesson of this story, that even the gentlest of gods can be brave when there is something worth being brave for. That even Hypnos, who serves and obeys and never demands, has his own desires, his own will, his own capacity for choosing risk over safety. He put Zeus to sleep twice. He risked the anger of the most powerful being in the cosmos. He did it out of fear the first time, yes, but the second time he did it for love. And that made all the difference. After all the risk, after all the fear and courage, after standing up to the wrath of Zeus himself, Hypnos received what he had longed for. Pasithea came to his cave at the edge of the world, and everything changed. Pasithea was one of the Charites, the Graces, goddesses who embodied beauty, charm, and joy. There were 3 of them in most traditions: Aglaea, Euphrosyne, and Talia, though some accounts number them differently and give them different names. Pasithea appears in some lists as the youngest, or sometimes as a separate figure associated specifically with relaxation, hallucination, and the deep calm that comes from meditation and rest. Her very name tells us what she is. Pasithea comes from Greek roots suggesting all divine or goddess of all, but it also carries connotations of the verb pastai, meaning to cease, to pause, to rest. She was not just beauty in the abstract. She was the beauty of stillness, the charm of calm, the grace found in the act of stopping. Where her sisters might dance and laugh at feasts on Olympus, where they might adorn Aphrodite and attend the weddings of gods and heroes, Pasithea represented something quieter. She was the moment after the dance ends, when the music fades, when you finally sit down and feel the pleasant ache in your muscles. She was the deep breath taken after exertion. She was the sigh of relief. In other words, she was perfect for Hypnos. Imagine what it must have been like when she arrived at his cave. This place that had only known darkness, stillness, and the murmuring of the river Lethe. Suddenly it had light. Not the harsh light of the sun, which never reached this far, but a softer radiance, the kind that seems to come from within, from the very presence of someone who carries joy and ease wherever they go. Pasithea brought warmth to the cool shadows. She brought laughter to the silence. She brought color to a realm that had existed only in shades of gray and black. And Hypnos, who had spent eternity in that cave, who had known only the company of his sons, the Oneiroi, and the distant presence of his mother and brother, suddenly had a companion, a partner, a wife who understood something essential about his nature that perhaps even he had not fully realized. Because Pasithea did not bring chaos to sleep. She did not bring noise or disturbance. She brought something else. She brought the understanding that sleep is not just absence. It is not just the shutting down of consciousness. Sleep is restoration. Sleep is recovery. Sleep is the gentle process by which the body and mind repair themselves, prepare themselves, make themselves ready for another day. This is what Pasithea, represented not the loss of waking, but the gift of restoration. Before Pasithea, one might think of sleep as simply darkness, simply the void between days. But with Pasithea, sleep becomes something more. It becomes a positive state, not a negative one. It becomes an experience of its own, valuable not just for what it allows you to escape, but for what it actively gives you. Relaxation, calm, the release of tension held in the body, the quieting of the anxious mind, the softening of rigid thoughts, the gentle dissolution of the day's stresses. This is Pasithea's work, and when she married Hypnos, she brought this work into his realm. She showed him, and through him, showed mortals and gods alike, that sleep is not just about forgetting, not just about escape. Sleep is also about healing. In the ancient world, this understanding was profound. The Greeks had their temples of Asclepius, where the sick came to sleep and dream of healing. They understood that sleep was therapeutic, that the body repaired itself during sleep in ways it could not while awake. Wounds closed faster, fevers broke, illnesses turned their course, but it was not just physical healing. Sleep healed the spirit too. The anxious found peace. The grieving found respite from their sorrow. The exhausted found renewal. And all of this was Pasithea's influence, working through Hypnos's nightly visitations. There is a gentleness to Hypnos that is often overlooked in the myths. We hear the dramatic stories, putting Zeus to sleep, his flights from divine anger, his role in the great events of the Iliad. But the truth is, most of Hypnos's work was quiet. Most of it was tender. Most of it was the simple act of coming to each person, each night, and offering them rest. And with Pasithea by his side, that rest became even gentler. She taught him, or perhaps she simply revealed what he had always known but not named, that there are different qualities of sleep. There's the sleep of exhaustion, when you collapse into bed and fall immediately into darkness. There's the sleep that comes after trauma or grief, troubled and fitful. There's the sleep disrupted by pain or anxiety, where you wake again and again, never quite finding peace. But there is also the sleep that comes with true relaxation. The sleep where you lie down and feel your body soften into the mattress, where your breath deepens naturally without effort, where your thoughts slow and drift like clouds, where you slip away not out of exhaustion, but out of a profound sense of safety and ease. This is the sleep that Pasithea brings. This is the gift of their union. In the cave at the edge of the world, where the river Lethe still murmurs its endless song of forgetting, there's now also laughter. There is now also light. The Oneiroi, the dream gods, have a stepmother who brings them warmth. The shadows are still there. Sleep is still the realm of Nyx, still the brother of death, but the shadows are softer now. Pasithea showed the world that sleep is not the enemy of life. Sleep is life's partner, life's support, life's necessary companion. You do not sleep to escape living. You sleep so that you can live more fully when you wake. This is perhaps why the marriage of Hypnos and Pasithea matters so much, even though it appears only briefly in the myths, even though it is a footnote in the larger story of the Trojan War. It matters because it represents a profound truth about rest. Rest is not weakness. Rest is not failure. Rest is not giving up. Rest is restoration. Rest is preparation. Rest is the gentle, necessary pause that allows everything else to continue. And in a world that was often violent, in myths filled with war and vengeance and struggle, this quiet truth was radical. It still is. The Greeks understood that even heroes need sleep, that even gods need sleep, that strength without rest is not strength at all, but a prelude to collapse. They built this understanding into their cosmos, into their stories, into the very fabric of their mythology. And at the center of it, in a cave at the edge of the world, lived a god and a goddess who embodied this truth. Hypnos and Pasithea, sleep and calm, darkness and light, forgetting and restoration. Together, they tended the mystery of rest, offering it freely to all who closed their eyes, asking nothing in return except the simple trust of surrender. And when morning came, when Hypnos released his gentle grip and mortals woke refreshed, it was Pasithea's gift they carried with them, the gift of having been held in calm, tended with care, allowed to be soft and vulnerable, and for a few hours, free from the weight of consciousness. This was their marriage. This was their work. This was the blessing they gave to the world, night after night, age after age, asking nothing, offering everything, as steady and reliable as the turning of the earth itself. And in their cave, if you could see it, if you were allowed to glimpse inside, you would see not just darkness now, but also light. Not just the murmuring of forgetfulness, but also the gentle sound of breathing, deep and easy. Not just the god of sleep, but also the goddess of restoration, together creating something neither could create alone. True rest, complete and healing and whole. Sleep brings us into Hypnos's realm, but what happens once we are there? What fills the hours of darkness between closing our eyes and waking? The answer for the Greeks was dreams. And dreams had their own gods, their own hierarchy, their own purpose. These were the onhurried, the dream gods, the sons of Hypnos, born from sleep itself. The word onhurried simply means dream in Greek, and the onhurried were dreams personified, dreams given form, and will and intention. Ancient sources tell us there were 1,000 of them, perhaps more, an endless host of dream spirits, each one different, each one carrying a different kind of vision, a different message, a different story. They lived with their father in his cave at the edge of the world, drifting like mist, waiting for nightfall when they would pour out into the sleeping world and visit the minds of mortals and gods alike. They moved between the waking world and the realm of sleep, inhabitants of that strange borderland where reality becomes fluid, where logic loosens, where the impossible becomes momentarily possible. But among these 1,000 dream spirits, there were 3 who stood out. 3 who were named, 3 who had specific roles, 3 who were the most skilled at their particular arts. The first was Morpheus. Morpheus was the eldest, or perhaps simply the most powerful. His name comes from the Greek morphe, meaning form or shape. He was the shaper, the one who could take on any human appearance within dreams. When you dreamed of a person, your mother, your lover, your enemy, your king, it was Morpheus who appeared to you wearing their face, speaking in their voice, moving with their gestures. And he was perfect in his imitations. The Greeks believed that Morpheus could replicate any human being, so precisely that even in the clarity of a dream, you could not tell the difference between the dream figure and the real person. Every detail was exact. The way they walked, the expression in their eyes, the particular cadence of their speech. Morpheus was not just a dream. He was a master craftsman of identity, a divine actor who never broke character. This made him the most important of the onhurried for messages. If a god wanted to speak to a mortal through dreams, if a warning needed to be delivered, if a command needed to be given, it was Morpheus who would appear, not as himself, but as someone the dreamer would trust, someone they would listen to. We see this in Homer. In the Iliad, Zeus wants to mislead Agamemnon, king of the Greeks. So he sends a dream, and that dream takes the form of Nestor, Agamemnon's most trusted advisor, a wise old counselor whose words carried weight. The dream Nestor tells Agamemnon to attack immediately, promising that victory is certain. And Agamemnon, waking, believes he has received divine guidance through the voice of someone he respects. He acts on the dream, and disaster follows exactly as Zeus intended. This was Morpheus's work, to appear as human, to speak with human voice, to deliver messages that might be true or false, helpful or harmful, prophecy or deception. He did not choose the content. He simply delivered it with perfect fidelity. The second of the named onhurried was Phobter, whose name means frightener. Some sources call him Iselos, meaning likeness. Where Morpheus took human form, Phobter specialized in animals, in beasts and monsters and creatures. He was the one who sent nightmares of being chased by wolves, of serpents coiling around your legs, of birds with sharp talons diving from the sky. But Phobter was not simply about terror. He represented the wild, untamed aspects of the dream world, the places where human reason did not apply, where instinct and primal fear took over. His dreams were the ones where you found yourself changing shape, becoming an animal yourself, or encountering creatures that could not exist but somehow did, moving through landscapes that shifted and transformed according to their own alien logic. The third was Phantasos, the shaper of inanimate objects. His name comes from Phantasian, to make visible, to bring to light. He created the landscapes of dreams, the houses that were familiar but wrong, the cities that existed nowhere, the objects that appeared and disappeared. Where Morpheus gave you people and Phobter gave you creatures, Phantasos gave you the world itself, the stage on which the dream played out. He was the god of earth and stone and water within dreams, of trees that grew in impossible configurations, of doors that led nowhere, of staircases that climbed forever. He was the architect of dream logic, the builder of spaces that felt significant even though you could not say why. Together, these three, Morpheus, Phobter, and Phantasos, could construct any dream imaginable. Any person, any creature, any landscape. And their 1,000 brothers filled in the details, the infinite variations, the endless possibilities of the sleeping mind. But the onhurried did not create dreams at random. They served a purpose. They carried messages. And the Greeks believed that dreams came through 2 different gates, and the gate determined the nature of the dream. Homer describes these gates in the Odyssey. There are 2 gates of sleep, he tells us. One is made of horn, the other of ivory. The gate of horn allows true dreams to pass through. These are the dreams sent by the gods with genuine messages, real prophecies, actual warnings. They are the dreams that, if heeded, can change your fate. If you dream through the gate of Horn, you are receiving something valuable, something real, even if it is clothed in symbol and metaphor. The gate of ivory, however, is the source of false dreams. These are deceptions, fantasies, wishes disguised as visions. They might feel profound. They might seem significant, but they carry no truth. They are, in Homer's words, dreams that speak falsely. The wordplay here is elegant in the original Greek. The word for horn is keras, which sounds similar to cranion, to fulfill or accomplish. The word for ivory is elephas, which echoes elephiromai, to deceive. Horn and fulfillment, ivory and deception, the language itself encoded the distinction. But here's the challenge. How do you know when you wake from a dream which gate it came through? How do you know if the vision was true or false, prophecy or illusion? The Greeks did not have a simple answer to this. They understood that discernment was necessary. Some dreams were obviously false, wild fantasies, impossible scenarios, the mind sorting through the debris of the day. But others were ambiguous. They felt important. They demanded interpretation. This is why the Greeks had professional dream interpreters. It's why they wrote books about dream symbolism. It's why they took dreams seriously as a category of experience that required careful attention. Because sometimes the unhurried brought messages that mattered. Sometimes they brought warnings that could save lives. Sometimes they brought visions that revealed hidden truths. But sometimes they brought deceptions. Sometimes they brought fears disguised as prophecies. Sometimes they brought the dreamer's own anxieties reflected back at them, magnified and distorted. And the challenge was learning to tell the difference. Morpheus, in particular, was both trusted and feared for this very reason. Because he appeared as people you knew, speaking words that sounded like truth. It was easy to believe him. Easy to wake up and think, this was not just a dream. This was real. This person came to me. But Morpheus served whoever commanded him. Zeus, Hera, any god who needed a message delivered. And the message might be genuine guidance, or it might be strategic manipulation. The Greeks understood that dreams were a space where you were vulnerable, where your defenses were down, where you could be influenced, persuaded, frightened, or comforted without your conscious mind filtering the experience. This is why the unhurried were so important. They were the interface between the divine and the sleeping mind. They were how the gods reached mortals when direct intervention was not possible or not desired. They were subtle where other divine actions were obvious. But dreams did not only come from gods. The Greeks also believed that dreams could arise from within, from your own psyche, from your own unprocessed emotions and experiences. These were not messages from outside, but reflections from within. The unhurried might still shape them, might still give them form, but the content came from you. Morpheus was the eldest, or perhaps simply the most powerful. His name comes from the Greek morphe, meaning form or shape. He was the shaper, the one who could take on any human appearance within dreams. When you dreamed of a person, your mother, your lover, your enemy, your king. It was Morpheus who appeared to you wearing their face, speaking in their voice, moving with their gestures, and he was perfect in his imitations. The Greeks believed that Morpheus could replicate any human being so precisely that even in the clarity of a dream, you could not tell the difference between the dream figure and the real person. Every detail was exact. The way they walked, the expression in their eyes, the particular cadence of their speech. Morpheus was not just a dream. He was a master craftsman of identity, a divine actor who never broke character. This made him the most important of the onhurried for messages. If a god wanted to speak to a mortal through dreams, if a warning needed to be delivered, if a command needed to be given, it was Morpheus who would appear, not as himself, but as someone the dreamer would trust, someone they would listen to. We see this in Homer. In the Iliad, Zeus wants to mislead Agamemnon, king of the Greeks. So he sends a dream, and that dream takes the form of Nestor, Agamemnon's most trusted advisor, a wise old counselor whose words carried weight. The dream Nestor tells Agamemnon to attack immediately, promising that victory is certain. And Agamemnon, waking, believes he has received divine guidance through the voice of someone he respects. He acts on the dream, and disaster follows exactly as Zeus intended. This was Morpheus's work, to appear as human, to speak with human voice, to deliver messages that might be true or false, helpful or harmful, prophecy or deception. He did not choose the content. He simply delivered it with perfect fidelity. The second of the named onhurried was Phobter, whose name means frightener. Some sources call him Iselos, meaning likeness. Where Morpheus took human form, Phobter specialized in animals, in beasts and monsters and creatures. He was the one who sent nightmares of being chased by wolves, of serpents coiling around your legs, of birds with sharp talons diving from the sky. But Phobter was not simply about terror. He represented the wild, untamed aspects of the dream world. The places where human reason did not apply, where instinct and primal fear took over. His dreams were the ones where you found yourself changing shape, becoming an animal yourself, or encountering creatures that could not exist, but somehow did, moving through landscapes that shifted and transformed according to their own alien logic. The third was Phantasos, the shaper of inanimate objects. His name comes from Phantasian, to make visible, to bring to light. He created the landscapes of dreams, the houses that were familiar but wrong, the cities that existed nowhere, the objects that appeared and disappeared. Where Morpheus gave you people and Phobter gave you creatures, Phantasos gave you the world itself, the stage on which the dream played out. He was the god of earth and stone and water within dreams, of trees that grew in impossible configurations, of doors that led nowhere, of staircases that climbed forever. He was the architect of dream logic, the builder of spaces that felt significant even though you could not say why. Together, these three, Morpheus, Phobter, and Phantasos, could construct any dream imaginable. Any person, any creature, any landscape. And their 1,000 brothers filled in the details, the infinite variations, the endless possibilities of the sleeping mind. But the onhurried did not create dreams at random. They served a purpose. They carried messages. And the Greeks believed that dreams came through two different gates, and the gate determined the nature of the dream. Homer describes these gates in the Odyssey. There are two gates of sleep, he tells us. One is made of horn, the other of ivory. The gate of horn allows true dreams to pass through. These are the dreams sent by the gods with genuine messages, real prophecies, actual warnings. They are the dreams that, if heeded, can change your fate. If you dream through the gate of horn, you are receiving something valuable, something real, even if it is clothed in symbol and metaphor. The gate of ivory, however, is the source of false dreams. These are deceptions, fantasies, wishes disguised as visions. They might feel profound, they might seem significant, but they carry no truth. They are, in Homer's words, dreams that speak falsely. The wordplay here is elegant in the original Greek. The word for horn is keras, which sounds similar to cranion, to fulfill or accomplish. The word for ivory is elephas, which echoes elephiromai, to deceive. Horn and fulfillment, ivory and deception. The language itself encoded the distinction. But here's the challenge. How do you know when you wake from a dream which gate it came through? How do you know if the vision was true or false, prophecy or illusion? The Greeks did not have a simple answer to this. They understood that discernment was necessary. Some dreams were obviously false, wild fantasies, impossible scenarios, the mind sorting through the debris of the day. But others were ambiguous. They felt important. They demanded interpretation. This is why the Greeks had professional dream interpreters. It's why they wrote books about dream symbolism. It's why they took dreams seriously as a category of experience that required careful attention. Because sometimes the onhurried brought messages that mattered. Sometimes they brought warnings that could save lives. Sometimes they brought visions that revealed hidden truths. But sometimes they brought deceptions. Sometimes they brought fears disguised as prophecies. Sometimes they brought the dreamer's own anxieties reflected back at them, magnified and distorted. And the challenge was learning to tell the difference. Morpheus, in particular, was both trusted and feared for this very reason. Because he appeared as people you knew, speaking words that sounded like truth. It was easy to believe him. Easy to wake up and think, this was not just a dream. This was real. This person came to me. But Morpheus served whoever commanded him. Zeus, Hera, any god who needed a message delivered. And the message might be genuine guidance, or it might be strategic manipulation. The Greeks understood that dreams were a space where you were vulnerable, where your defenses were down, where you could be influenced, persuaded, frightened, or comforted without your conscious mind filtering the experience. This is why the onhurried were so important. They were the interface between the divine and the sleeping mind. They were how the gods reached mortals when direct intervention was not possible or not desired. They were subtle where other divine actions were obvious. But dreams did not only come from gods. The Greeks also believed that dreams could arise from within, from your own psyche, from your own unprocessed emotions and experiences. These were not messages from outside, but reflections from within. The onhurried might still shape them, might still give them form, but the content came from you. This is where dreams become something more than communication. They become revelation, not of the future, but of the self. In dreams, you might see your own fears personified, your own desires given shape, your own unspoken grief appearing as a figure you must confront. The Oneiroi were skilled at this too, at taking the raw material of your inner life and crafting it into narrative, into symbol, into experience. And sometimes the dreams taught. There are stories of people learning skills in dreams, of solutions to problems appearing in sleep, of insights that came only when the conscious mind was quiet. The mathematician Archimedes was said to have discovered principles of geometry in dreams. The philosopher Socrates spoke of a dream that encouraged him to practice music. Artists and poets often attributed their best work to visions that came in sleep. This was the Oneiroi's gentler work, not warning or frightening or deceiving, but teaching, showing the dreamer something they needed to see, something they could not access while awake. And sometimes, most simply, the dreams comforted. A grieving person might dream of their lost loved one, whole and well, speaking words of reassurance. A lonely person might dream of companionship. A frightened person might dream of safety. These dreams did not need to be prophecy. They did not need to be messages from gods. They simply needed to be respite, a few hours where suffering was temporarily suspended. Morpheus and his brothers could give this too. They could create within the sleeping mind entire worlds where pain did not exist, where what was lost was found again, where what seemed impossible became real, if only for a night. This is the full scope of the Oneiroi's work. They were messengers, yes. They were deceivers, sometimes. They were teachers. They were comforters. They were the artists who painted on the canvas of the sleeping mind, using the materials of memory and fear and hope and desire to create experiences that felt as real as waking life, sometimes more real. And when you woke, the dream would fade. The details would slip away, growing hazier with each passing moment, until sometimes all that remained was a feeling, an impression, a sense that something important had happened, but you could not quite remember what. This fading was not failure. The Greeks understood that dreams were meant to be experienced more than remembered. They were events that happened in sleep, and like all events, they passed. Some left lasting impressions. Some changed the course of lives, but most simply were, and then were not, dissolving back into the darkness from which they came, returning to the cave of Hypnos, where the Oneiroi waited for the next night, the next sleeper, the next opportunity to shape visions in the dark. Morpheus would take off the face he had been wearing. Folkter would release the form of the beast. Phantasos would let the dream landscape dissolve, and they would drift again, formless, waiting ready. Because every night the work began again. Every night the gates opened, horn and ivory, truth and deception, revelation and illusion. And through those gates, the Oneiroi would fly, carrying dreams to the sleeping world, shaping the visions that would comfort, teach, warn, frighten, deceive, or simply fill the hours of darkness with stories that felt, for a moment, like life itself. We have spoken of Morpheus and his gift for human faces, his ability to deliver messages in forms we recognize and trust. But the realm of sleep is not only populated by familiar figures speaking clear words. There are other territories in the land of dreams, stranger and more unsettling. And these territories belong to Morpheus's brothers, Phobter and Phantasos. Phobter's name tells you everything you need to know about him. Phobos is the Greek word for fear, and Phobter was the bringer of it, the one who sent dreams that made you wake with your heart pounding, your breath short, your body flooded with the chemicals of terror. But Phobter did not simply terrorize for the sake of cruelty. He had his own craft, his own specialty. Where Morpheus could become any human, Phobter could become any creature. Any animal, any monster, any beast that crawled or flew or swam or slithered. He was the master of the non-human form, the shapeshifter of tooth and claw and scale. In dreams, he might appear as a wolf pursuing you through endless forests, as a serpent rising from still water, as a great bird with talons extended, diving from impossible heights, as something that had no name in waking life but in the dream was utterly real, a creature with too many eyes, or limbs bent at wrong angles, or a mouth that opened and never stopped opening. The Romans called him Isolos, meaning likeness, but by any name, his purpose was the same: to show the dreamer the wild, the untamed, the dangerous, the parts of existence that are not civilized, not controlled, not safe. And this, the Greeks understood, was necessary. Not every dream could be gentle. Not every vision could be comforting, because life itself was not always gentle or comforting. There were real dangers in the ancient world: wild animals, warfare, disease, betrayal. The human psyche needed ways to process these dangers, to rehearse responses, to confront fears in a space where they could not actually harm you. This was Phobter's gift, though it rarely felt like a gift in the moment. When you dreamed of being chased, your body learned to run. When you dreamed of facing a predator, some ancient part of your brain practiced survival. When you dreamed of losing control, of transforming into something else, of being hunted or trapped or overwhelmed, you were working through the fundamental vulnerability of being alive. Nightmares, the Greeks believed, were not always punishments or curses. Sometimes they were warnings. A dream of a serpent might alert you to hidden danger. A dream of drowning might make you more cautious near water. A dream of being attacked might prepare your spirit for conflict to come. And sometimes, nightmares were simply release. Fear that could not be expressed during the day found its way into dreams. Anxieties that had to be suppressed, hidden, denied. These took shape in the night as creatures and scenarios that allowed the fear to be experienced, discharged, released. Better to face the wolf in your dream than to carry the unnamed dread of it all through your waking hours. Phobter was not cruel. He was honest. He showed you what lived beneath the surface of your mind, what prowled at the edges of your awareness. And in doing so, he helped you survive. But he was not the only architect of the strange. There was also Phantasos. Phantasos created the impossible landscapes, the surreal imagery that had no clear meaning but somehow felt deeply significant. Where Phobter gave you creatures and Morpheus gave you people, Phantasos gave you the world itself, but a world transformed, bent, reimagined according to dream logic rather than waking physics. Under his influence, you might dream of a house that was your childhood home, but also a cathedral, but also a cave. All three at once. the rooms shifting as you move through them. You might dream of water flowing upward, of staircases that led to the same place no matter which direction you walked, of doors that opened onto skies instead of rooms. You might dream of objects that held emotional weight you could not explain, a key that felt like grief, a mirror that showed not reflections but memories, a book whose pages were blank but somehow told you everything you needed to know. Phantasos was the god of metaphor made manifest. He spoke in the language of symbol, of image, of the strange poetry that the sleeping mind understands even when the waking mind cannot translate it. His dreams were often the hardest to interpret because they did not follow narrative logic. They did not have clear messages. They simply were collages of imagery and feeling, landscapes of meaning that could not be reduced to simple explanation. But these dreams, too, had their purpose. Sometimes the conscious mind needs to step aside. Sometimes direct understanding is not possible, and the psyche must work through problems indirectly, through symbol and association, through the strange connections that only dreams can make. A dream of flying might not be about literal flight, but about freedom, or about perspective, or about the desire to escape gravity, both physical and metaphorical. Phantasos gave the dreamer permission to think in ways that waking logic forbade, to make connections that seemed absurd but felt true, to experience meaning that could not be put into words but was nonetheless real. And like Faulkner's nightmares, Phantasos' surreal visions were not always pleasant. They could be deeply unsettling, leaving you waking with a sense of profound unease, unable to articulate what was wrong, but certain that something was. This discomfort, the Greeks understood, was often the mind's way of signaling that something needed attention, that there was an unresolved question, an unprocessed emotion, a truth you were avoiding. The strangeness of the dream was not meaningless. It was the shape your resistance took, the form of your own reluctance to see clearly. But here's what makes both Faulkner and Phantasos ultimately compassionate. Even in their unsettling work, they gave the dreamer distance. When you face a fear as a creature in a dream, it is terrible, yes, but it is also not the actual thing you fear. The wolf is not your cruel employer. The serpent is not your failing health. The monster is not your grief. It is a representation, a translation, a way of experiencing the emotional truth without being destroyed by the literal reality. This distance allows you to survive the encounter, to face what needs to be faced without being overwhelmed by it, to practice courage in a space where failure is temporary, where you can wake and start again. And the surreal landscapes, the impossible architectures, the shifting symbols, the objects that mean more than they are, these too provide distance. They let you think about difficult things obliquely, sideways, in ways that your conscious defenses cannot block because they do not recognize what is happening. The Greeks honored both these aspects of dreaming. They did not insist that all dreams should be pleasant. They did not try to banish nightmares or dismiss strange visions as meaningless. They understood that the full range of dreaming, the comforting and the terrifying, the clear and the obscure, was necessary for psychological health, for spiritual balance, for simply being human. Faulkner and Phantasos were not lesser than Morpheus. They were equally essential. They tended to the parts of the psyche that could not be reached through clear communication, through words, through recognizable faces speaking obvious truths. They reached the deep places, the wordless places, the places where fear and wonder and mystery lived, where the rational mind could not go but the dreaming mind could. And when you woke from their dreams, shaken or confused or unsettled, this was not failure. This was the sign that you had been somewhere real, somewhere important, somewhere that mattered. The discomfort was proof that you had encountered something your waking self needed to know, even if you did not yet understand what it was. So if you have nightmares, if you have strange dreams that make no sense but linger with you, if you wake sometimes feeling that you have been to a place you cannot describe and seen things you cannot name, know that Phobter and Phantasos have been at work. Know that they are not punishing you but teaching you, not tormenting you but tending to you in their own fierce and peculiar way. They are showing you what lives inside you. They are giving shape to what would otherwise remain formless and therefore more frightening. They are translating the untranslatable, making the invisible visible, bringing to the surface what has been submerged. And in the morning, when you return to the waking world, you do not need to understand everything they showed you. You do not need to interpret every symbol, decode every image, explain every feeling. Sometimes it is enough simply to have been there, to have faced the creatures and walked through the impossible landscapes, to have survived the night and emerged again in today. This is the work of dreams. This is the gift of the unhurried. Even when their gifts come wrapped in fear and strangeness, they are tending to your depths. They are honoring your complexity. They are reminding you that you contain multitudes, not just the parts you show to the world, but also the wild parts, the scared parts, the parts that speak in symbols and metaphors and the wordless language of imagery. Phobter and Phantasos know these parts of you. They visit them every night, and they do their work with the same dedication as their brother Morpheus, shaping visions in the dark, crafting experiences that serve purposes you may not consciously understand, but your deeper self recognizes as necessary. And when their work is done, when you wake and the dream fades, they return to their father's cave and wait. Because tomorrow night, there will be more fears to face, more symbols to explore, more impossible landscapes to navigate. The work is never finished. The depths are never fully plumbed, but you are not alone in them. The unhurried walk with you, even through the darkest territories of sleep, even through the strangest visions, faithful guides in the land where nothing is certain except that eventually, always, you will wake again. The Greeks did not simply wait for dreams to come to them. They did not view sleep as a passive experience, something that merely happened each night without intention or meaning. Instead, they developed practices around sleep, rituals designed to invite specific kinds of dreams, particular kinds of divine encounters. And nowhere was this more important than in the temples of healing, where sleep itself became medicine. This practice was called incubation, from the Latin incubare, meaning to lie down upon, but the Greeks called it enkoemesis. It was the art of sleeping in a sacred space, deliberately with preparation and intention, in order to receive a healing dream. The most famous of these healing sanctuaries were dedicated to Asclepius, the god of medicine. He was the son of Apollo. trained by the wise centaur Chiron, and he became so skilled at healing that he could even bring the dead back to life. Until Zeus, fearing the natural order was being disrupted, struck him down with a thunderbolt. But after his death, Asclepius was elevated to divine status, and his cult spread throughout the Greek world. His temples became places of pilgrimage for the sick, the injured, the desperate. People came from great distances, carrying their ailments and their hopes, seeking the god's intervention. And the primary way they sought his help was through sleep. The Asclepieion at Epidaurus was the most renowned of these healing sanctuaries. Located in a peaceful valley on the Peloponnese, it was a sprawling complex that included not just a temple, but also a theater, a stadium, baths, and most importantly, the Abaton, the sacred sleeping hall where patients would spend the night, waiting for the god to visit them in dreams. But you could not simply arrive and immediately sleep in the Abaton. There was a process, a ritual preparation that could take days or even weeks. This was not a hospital in the modern sense. This was a sacred precinct, and entering it required spiritual readiness. First, you would purify yourself. You would bathe in sacred springs, washing away not just physical dirt, but spiritual pollution. Anything that might block your connection to the divine. You would abstain from certain foods, meat, wine, sometimes specific vegetables that were considered impure. You would practice sexual abstinence. The goal was to make yourself as clear as possible, as open as possible, a vessel ready to receive divine presence. Then you would make offerings. You would sacrifice an animal, a rooster, a goat, something appropriate to your means and your need. The sacrifice was not payment exactly, but acknowledgement. You were entering into relationship with the god, and relationship required reciprocity, respect, demonstration of sincerity. You would pray. You would state your need clearly, speaking to Asclepius, asking for his attention, his compassion, his healing touch. Sometimes these prayers were written on tablets and left at the temple. Sometimes they were spoken aloud in ritual. Always they were heartfelt. The gods, the Greeks believed, could tell the difference between genuine need and empty performance. And then, when you were ready, when the priest deemed you ready, you would enter the Abaton. It was a long colonnade, open to the air on the sides, but roofed against rain. The floor was strewn with pallets and blankets, places for many people to lie down together. You were not alone in your seeking. Others were there, each with their own ailments, their own prayers, their own hopes. And in the darkness, in the communal space of shared vulnerability, you would lie down and close your eyes, and you would wait for Asclepius to come. The dreams that came in the Abaton were considered uniquely powerful. This was not ordinary sleep in your own bed, not the random processing of daily concerns. This was sacred sleep, sleep undertaken with purpose in a place charged with divine presence after days of preparation. The dreams that came here were expected to be significant. Sometimes, Asclepius appeared directly. Accounts from the temples tell of patients dreaming that the god himself entered the hall, walking among the sleeping figures, examining them with divine sight, sometimes touching them, sometimes performing surgery right there in the dream. People would dream of the god's hands on their bodies, removing tumors, setting bones, extracting foreign objects, curing infections. And when they woke, sometimes, not always, but sometimes they were healed. The archaeological evidence for this practice is extensive. We have found hundreds of stone tablets called ayamata inscribed with testimonials from healed patients. I came to Asclepius blind in one eye, and he appeared to me, and with his finger he opened my eye, and in the morning I could see. I came unable to walk, and the god sent me a dream where I ran through a field, and when I woke my legs were strong. Were these miracles? Psychosomatic healings? The power of belief? The Greeks did not make our modern distinctions between psychological and physical ailments, between mind and body. They understood that healing was holistic, that the dream state could access something in the patient that waking consciousness could not reach, and that whatever happened in those sacred dreams had real effects. But not all the dreams were of the god himself appearing. Sometimes the healing came through symbolic visions, through strange imagery that needed interpretation. And this is where the priests came in. The priests of Asclepius were trained in dream interpretation. They understood the symbolic language of dreams, the way the unconscious mind, or the divine mind working through the unconscious, communicated in images rather than clear speech. A dream of a serpent might indicate healing, since serpents were sacred to Asclepius and symbolized transformation through shedding skin. A dream of being in water might suggest emotional cleansing. A dream of climbing a mountain might represent the journey toward health. The priest would listen to your dream account in the morning. They would ask questions, probe for details, help you understand what the god was telling you. And then they would prescribe treatment based on the dream's message. Sometimes the treatment was herbal medicine. There were gardens at the Asclepia where medicinal plants were grown. Sometimes it was dietary advice, exercise regimens, bathing practices. Sometimes it was psychological counsel, addressing grief or trauma or stress that manifested as physical symptoms. The healing was comprehensive, addressing the whole person. And sometimes the dream itself was the healing. Sometimes simply having the experience of being visited by the god, of being seen by divine eyes, of being touched by divine hands, even if only in sleep, was enough to shift something fundamental in the patient, to give them hope where there had been despair, to give them the will to continue, to give them the sense that they were not abandoned, not forgotten, that their suffering mattered to someone, even if that someone was a god. This understanding of sleep as a doorway to healing was not limited to the Asclepia. Other temples practiced similar rituals. Sanctuaries of heroes and nymphs and underworld deities sometimes offered incubation. People would sleep in caves sacred to specific gods, near springs believed to have healing properties, in groves where the boundary between mortal and divine was thought to be thin. But the principle was always the same. Sleep in the right place, with the right preparation, with the right intention, and something more than ordinary dreams might come. The gods might speak. Healing might arrive. Insight might bloom. The Greeks understood something we are only beginning to recover in modern times, that sleep is not passive, that the sleeping mind is not shut down, but rather operating in a different mode, a mode that has access to resources the waking mind cannot reach. In sleep, the body's healing mechanisms intensify. Tissues repair themselves more quickly. The immune system strengthens. Inflammation decreases. These are measurable physical facts. But the Greeks also intuited something deeper, that in sleep, the psyche has access to wisdom that waking consciousness obscures. They believed, and perhaps they were right, that in the liminal state between waking and sleeping, in the darkness of a sacred space, in the vulnerability of ritual preparation, you could encounter truths about yourself, about your illness, about what needed to change in order for healing to occur. The priests of Asclepius were not simply religious functionaries. They were therapists in the oldest sense, attendants to healing, guides who helped patients navigate the mysterious country of their own dreams and emerge with understanding. And they honored Hypnos as much as they honored Asclepius, because without sleep, there could be no healing dreams. Without Hypnos opening the door, Asclepius could not enter. The god of medicine needed the god of sleep to do his work. This is why in some temples there were altars to Hypnos alongside altars to Asclepius. Why poppies? Hypnos's flower grew in the temple gardens. Why the priests understood that creating the conditions for deep, peaceful sleep was itself a form of medicine. And what were those conditions? Darkness, quiet, safety, the knowledge that you were held in a sacred space, protected, tended, the removal of daily concerns and anxieties through ritual purification, the presence of others engaged in the same vulnerable seeking, creating a field of shared intention. These conditions allowed for the kind of sleep that heals, not the shallow, anxious sleep of someone worried about tomorrow, not the exhausted collapse of someone pushed beyond their limits, but the deep, receptive sleep of someone who has set down their burdens, at least temporarily, and trusted something larger than themselves to hold them while they rest. This is what the temples offered. This is what incubation was for. And when it worked, when the patient dreamed their healing dream, when they woke transformed or comforted or directed toward what they needed, it was understood as a collaboration between multiple divine forces. Asclepius provided the healing knowledge. Hypnos provided the doorway. The Oneiroi, particularly Morpheus, shaped the dream into a form the patient could understand. And behind all of them, present but usually unacknowledged, was Nyx herself, the great darkness that held everything, the mother of sleep, the ancient night in whose realm these mysteries unfolded. The practice of incubation lasted for over 1,000 years in the ancient world. From the classical Greek period through the Roman Empire, people continued to seek healing through sacred sleep. The temples of Asclepius were among the last pagan sanctuaries to close when Christianity became the dominant religion, testament to how deeply people valued what they offered. And perhaps this is because the need they addressed is eternal. The need to be healed not just in body but in spirit. The need to feel that suffering has meaning, that pain is witnessed, that recovery is possible. The need to access the deeper wisdom that lives below the surface of waking consciousness. Sleep gave them that access. Sleep, approached with reverence and intention, became a doorway not just to dreams, but to transformation. And the gods of sleep, Hypnos and his sons, were the guardians of that doorway, welcoming all who came with sincere need. offering their gift without judgment, without payment, asking only that you close your eyes and trust that in the darkness, something healing might be found. Modern sleep science has discovered that during sleep, the brain does extraordinary things. It consolidates memories, sorting through the day's experiences, deciding what to keep and what to discard. It clears metabolic waste from neural tissue, literally cleaning the brain. It processes emotions, taking the raw experiences of waking life and integrating them, softening their sharp edges, helping us make sense of what we felt. This is Lethe's work, described in the language of neuroscience rather than mythology. The river of forgetfulness still flows through sleep, washing away what need not be kept, allowing us to wake with minds that are clearer, fresher, better able to face the new day. And dreams. Modern research has shown that dreams are not meaningless. They are the brain's way of processing emotion, of working through problems, of making connections between seemingly unrelated pieces of information. The strange logic of dreams, the impossible landscapes and surreal imagery. These reflect the brain operating in a different mode, one where the usual rules don't apply, where creativity and insight can emerge in ways that linear, rational thinking cannot access. This is Phantasos's territory, described now in terms of neural networks and REM sleep. But the essential truth remains the same. There is wisdom in the strangeness of dreams, meaning in the symbols, value in the visions that make no literal sense but somehow feel important. Even nightmares have been shown to serve a purpose. They help us process fear, rehearse responses to danger, work through trauma in a safe environment where we can wake if it becomes too much. This is Fogder's ancient work, now confirmed by sleep researchers who study how the brain uses dreams to regulate emotion and prepare for potential threats. The Greeks, without laboratories or brain scans, intuited all of this. They understood that sleep was not empty time, not a void to be endured or minimized. They understood that dreams mattered, that they served essential functions, that the sleeping mind had its own intelligence, its own purposes, its own ways of healing and teaching and preparing us for life. And perhaps most importantly, they understood that sleep required respect, that it could not be endlessly deferred, could not be treated as optional, could not be sacrificed without consequence. In our modern world, we have forgotten this. We wear our sleep deprivation as a badge of honor, proof of our dedication, our productivity, our importance. We fill our nights with screens and stimulation, pushing back against darkness as if it were the enemy. We medicate ourselves to sleep and to wake, trying to control what the Greeks knew could not and should not be fully controlled. And we suffer for it. Sleep disorders are epidemic. Anxiety and depression, both intimately connected to poor sleep, are rising. We are exhausted, overstimulated, disconnected from the natural rhythms that sustained our ancestors for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks would not be surprised by this. They would recognize it immediately as the consequence of dishonoring Hypnos, of refusing his gift, of trying to exist in perpetual day without ever surrendering to night. But their mythology also offers us a way back. It reminds us that sleep is sacred, that it is not weakness, but wisdom to close your eyes when darkness falls. That rest is not laziness, but restoration. That dreams, even difficult ones, serve purposes we need not fully understand in order to benefit from them. It tells us that there is a God of sleep, and his nature is gentle, that he comes to everyone, regardless of status or wealth or achievement, that his cave is always open, his river always flowing, his sons always ready to bring whatever dreams we need, even if we don't know we need them. It tells us that we are held, even in the vulnerability of sleep. That Nyx, the ancient night, is not something to fear, but something to trust. That darkness is not emptiness, but fullness, pregnant with possibility, rich with mystery, necessary for life to continue. And it tells us that we have permission, divine permission, you might say, to rest, to let go, to stop striving, stop worrying, stop trying to control everything, at least for a few hours each night. Hypnos does not ask for worthiness. He does not require that you be productive enough, successful enough, good enough to deserve his gift. He simply comes night after night, offering sleep to all who will accept it. And Pasithea, his wife, reminds us that rest is not just the cessation of activity. It is an active state of restoration, of relaxation, of allowing the body and mind to soften, to heal, to prepare for tomorrow. This is what the ancient myths offer us, not just stories, but wisdom, not just entertainment, but permission. Permission to be human, to be mortal, to have limits, to need rest. In a world that constantly demands more productivity, more engagement, more awareness, the gods of sleep offer the radical counter-message. It is okay to stop. It is necessary to stop. It is holy to stop. So tonight, when you close your eyes, you are participating in something ancient. You are accepting a gift that has been offered since the beginning of human consciousness. You are entering a realm that has been tended by divine forces for as long as people have told stories about why we dream. You are not alone in the darkness. Hypnos is there as he has always been. His sons drift through your dreams, shaping them according to needs you may not consciously recognize. Pasithea brings her calm. Nyx holds the space. And in the morning, when you wake, you will have been tended to, cared for, restored by forces that ask nothing in return except that you trust them enough to surrender. This is the gift. This is the wisdom. This is what the ancient Greeks knew and what we, perhaps, are beginning to remember. Imagine yourself approaching that cave now. The journey back is easier than the journey there. You know the way. You have walked it before. Every night of your life, though you may not remember. The path is familiar to your body, even if your mind does not consciously recognize it. The poppies at the entrance are closing their petals in the perpetual twilight. Their scent is faint but present, sweet and drowsy. The silence grows deeper as you draw near. The sounds of the waking world, all the noise and urgency and demand, these fade behind you, growing distant, becoming unimportant. At the threshold, you pause, and you realize you are not afraid. This dark opening in the mountainside is not ominous. It is welcoming. It has been waiting for you. It waits for everyone, every night, offering shelter, offering rest, offering the temporary dissolution of the self that allows the self to continue. You step inside, and the darkness enfolds you. But it is a soft darkness, a kind darkness. Your eyes do not need to adjust because there is nothing you need to see here. This is a place for closing eyes, not opening them. The murmuring of the river Lethe is louder now. You can hear it flowing somewhere nearby, its waters endlessly carrying away what need not be carried any longer. And you understand that you can set things down here. The worries you brought with you, the plans for tomorrow, the regrets about yesterday, the endless list of things undone, things you should have said, things you wish you hadn't. All of it can be set down beside the river. All of it can be released into the flow. You do not have to hold everything. You were never meant to hold everything. Deeper in the cave, you sense rather than see the great bed where Hypnos rests. And nearby, the light that is Pasithea, soft and warm, a gentle radiance that does not illuminate but comforts. They are here, these divine beings, tending to their ancient work, receiving all who come, judging none, welcoming everyone. The onhurried drift around you now, though you cannot quite see them. They are preparing, choosing, shaping the dreams they will bring to you tonight. You do not need to know what those dreams will be. You do not need to control them. You can trust that whatever comes will be what you need, whether you understand it or not. And somewhere beyond, deeper in the cave, deeper than sight can reach, there is the presence of Nyx herself, the great darkness, the ancient night, the mother of all this, who has held the world since before the world had form, who will hold it still when everything else has passed away. You are safe here. You have always been safe here, even when you didn't know where here was. And now, finally, you can let go. You can release the day. You can allow your thoughts to drift like dreams, formless and floating, not grasping at anything, not pushing anything away, simply drifting like the onhurried themselves, like mist, like breath. There is nothing more you need to do tonight. Nothing more you need to understand. Nothing more you need to prove or accomplish or become. For these hours, you can simply be held in the darkness, tended by forces older than time, given the gift that every living thing requires: rest. Hypnos is near now. You can feel his presence, gentle and certain. He does not force. He does not demand. He simply offers, as he has offered every night since the beginning, as he will offer every night until the end. And if you accept his offering, if you allow your eyes to close and your body to soften and your mind to release its grip on waking consciousness, he will do what he has always done. He will touch your eyelids with careful fingers. He will pour sleep over you like water, like darkness, like the softest blanket ever woven. And you will sink into his care, into the cave, into the darkness that is not absence, but presence, not emptiness, but fullness, not ending, but transformation. The river will sing you deeper. The dreams will come, whatever dreams need to come. And somewhere in a place beyond thought, beyond identity, beyond the boundaries of the waking self, you will rest, truly rest. And in the morning, and there will be a morning, there is always a morning, you will return. Hypnos will release you, as he always does. The light will find you again. The world will reconstitute itself around you, and you will wake, not knowing where you have been, but carrying the gift of having been there nonetheless. This is the blessing. This is the gift. This is what the gods of sleep offer, night after night, faithful and patient and infinitely kind. So rest now. Let the story end. Let the cave receive you. Let the darkness hold you. There is nothing to fear. There is only Hypnos waiting. There is only sleep offered freely. There is only the ancient gift as old as consciousness itself, the gift of surrender, the gift of rest, the gift of returning for a little while to the place before thought, before worry, before striving. The cave is quiet now. The river murmurs. The Onira wait. And you, like every person who has ever lived, like every god who has ever needed rest, like every creature who has ever closed its eyes against the day, you are held in the realm of Hypnos, safe, tended, at peace. Thanks for listening to the very end. I am so glad that this story supported your relaxation. I hope that we can meet again for another peaceful legend. Sleep well